Bruce, you should have told me you were wearing purple.
Should have worn my fall jersey. I was wondering if it was themed. Chief Bush, you all right back there? I always feel like you just got some candles lit or something, like the mood's just right. You just got this low, dim lighting on you all the time.
Ambiance.
It's better than seeing the lit up version of me, buddy.
Right.
I like lurking in the shadows better.
Yeah, there you go.
Mr. Bolt, I see a Dolphins jersey and a neck and part of a bicep.
Hey guys, I'm sorry for the delay, and I'm going to be a little mobile. We've had a situation come up here. So let's get started. Is it time? Yes, it's time. If y'all lose me, Mr. Bolt is the vice chairman.
You want to hook up to my phone?
Take it easy. I don't want to get there dead.
It appears we have lost Alderman Sprouse.
Yeah. Hello, how's everybody doing?
Mr. Free, we're good, buddy. How are you?
Good, doing good.
Even in quarantine, you get the best dressed award, man.
Oh, hey, I'm wearing jeans, so.
As
Hey,
far as that
Andy,
goes,
I like the Dolphins, Andy. That's one of my favorite teams. It always has been. Oh, can't see what you're holding up. It's blended into the dolphin.
you're muted, Andy.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, when you hold that up, it's just showing the dolphin thing behind you.
I only like the Dolphins because Tua plays for them now. So
Yeah.
Follow my players.
I've just been waiting for them to be great again.
Yes, it's been
How long have you been following them?
been a few years.
How long have you been following them, Mr. Free?
Since the 70s.
Probably going to be another 70 years before they're good again.
About 10 years ago, it seemed like maybe they had a chance and missed a field goal, and then it's been downhill from there. So,
That was Finkel and Einhorn. That was in
Yeah.
Pet Detective. Ace Ventura.
Yeah. Could
a
be
great movie, by the way.
I'm a follower of the Minnesota Vikings, so that's pretty tough.
Hey, gang, how you doing?
Hi, Dave.
I have kryptonite. I'll get it and show you your kryptonite there, Keith.
What's that? Oh. Well, he disappeared back there.
That is positively ghostly.
It is.
Wait on Jonathan.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready.
Yeah, and that's
Uh,
in the demise right there.
You're in charge, Andy.
Andy, Miami Dolphins, really?
not me, you are.
Oh.
I defer to you, Jonathan.
Hey, I'm here.
All right.
Can you hear me and see me?
Yes.
We
Okay,
got you,
great.
Alderman Sprouse.
All right, y'all ready to go?
Yes.
Yes.
We have 2 minutes to approve. Do I hear a motion to approve the first set of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote. Roll call vote.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Mr. Bolt,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. Do I have a motion for this to approve the second set of minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote. Mr. Bolt,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
I also vote aye. That's unanimous. And if you would have helped me out with the next item on the agenda, I'm getting a hard copy here in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's an ordinance amending Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 4, Chapter 3, Comprehensive Classification and Compensation Plan.
All right. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to say about this?
Thanks, Alderman Sprouse. Yeah, I actually pulled up the wrong agenda, but I think I can get through it. Everything tonight on the agenda for us is going to be related to the new promotions, demotions, and transfers policy, which you guys have seen a couple times at this point. There's been no content changes in regards to the policy draft. The only concern I've got on this ordinance as presented, and maybe John can help clarify, the only concern we have on this is the June 1st date and how or if that will affect the recent issues we've discussed recently with the education pay and things like that. I know with that policy, that's been a much more controversial subject that we've decided to delay a couple months. But will this decision affect that whatsoever?
First of all, we can't pass laws retroactively. It's unconstitutional. So everything's forward and forward in application. The way it normally works, you pass an ordinance on 2 readings, then it's published in the newspaper, and then the day it's published is the day it takes effect. Rather than having anybody worried about what day it was published, it's just nice. And we always do this in our planning ordinances. When we change the planning or the zoning ordinance, we always put a date. Nobody's going to be hired or promoted or anything else between now and June 1st. You could put May 1st if you'd prefer, or you could leave it out altogether, and it's going to take effect whatever the day that publication is. It's not going to change anybody's right in the future to demote people. If the city administrator thinks that someone needs to be demoted, this won't have anything to do with that. This has to do with, it's just saying the promotions we have now are what they are, and this is a policy, especially as it relates to education pay, because that's in here. Well, you can start at June 1st. If you don't put that in there, it's going to probably start something like, if the schedule goes as we anticipate, it'll start sometime in May. So it's either May or June. I mean, it's just to give it a definite date, but there's no uncertainty about it.
Yeah, that's really all I've got is just making sure that this date does not affect any of the recent discussion that we've had about trying to clean up some issues that we have recently had surfaced, especially in our police and fire department, as the chiefs are obviously aware of, and Chief Bush is on here as well. So that's really my only concern at this point is just making sure that date doesn't really restrict us in fixing problems, whether that's in the next couple months or with a new city administrator wants to go back and take a look at some of those issues. So.
Yeah, and that was my only concern too. And I think John, we had something with maternity leave back a few months ago, and we went back for people for several years and made it right. And all I want to do is be able to, if something is wrong in a situation like that maternity leave thing that we did, we can go back and make those people right. So I just don't want to, the date's not going to affect that, is it?
No.
Okay.
But in that situation, we were doing something for someone, but we're not taking something away from someone.
Right.
So when you give someone a benefit they didn't already have, they're not going to complain about it. They're not going to say, well, you can't do that retroactively. Whereas if you went back and tried to reduce somebody's pay by $10,000 based on whatever, there might be an issue with that. And we've never attempted to do that. And when we talked about the promotion policy, we agreed that this was not going to affect any current employee as far as their current promotions. It was just for future promotions. So that's the reason I put the date in there. But it's going to be either May or June, whether we put that in there or not.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I guess, like I said, that's really all I wanted to hear in relation to the date. I'm good with it. Otherwise, I mean, it certainly supports kind of what we're trying to do with promotions moving forward. Again, I don't want to waste everybody's time with kind of catching up to speed. There's been lots of discussion recently about some things that have surfaced regarding education pay, but this has nothing to do with that conversation. So the promotions, demotions, and transfers policy is something that has always been supported by seemingly everyone. I don't want to speak for everyone, but it was certainly passed with flying colors a couple weeks ago at the finance level. There's a couple other department heads on here if they'd like to speak about any of that, but I'm certainly okay with this ordinance as is, with the understanding that that date's not going to restrict us, and I appreciate that, John. But I was going to say that's all I've got. So,
Andy, I keep going in and out of service. I'm gonna yield the chair to you just in case it happens again.
All right. All right, do we need to make a motion on this?
Yeah, I guess I want to ask if any other directors have any comments or questions. Chief Bush, I think Andy.
Yeah, no, I think the two prime examples that are current with me that I can think of is we moved a person from shift work to day work, working 204 hours to 40 hours. So there's a lot of moving pieces with that. So with that promotion came 7.5% of an increase. Then a couple of years later, that person wanted to go back. So they basically, what I call self-demoted themselves. A position came back. So by the letter of the rule now, the way it stands, if we don't make this change, is he only goes back less 2.5%. So now a couple of years have passed. If he's up for another promotion, he'll get another 7.5% on top of that. And he would be a first-year person in that next rank that would probably be making about as much or more than what let's just say a captain that was in that rank or in that position for 4 or 5 years. That could certainly create an issue. And then when we had the influx of police officers that wanted to come to the fire department, it was certainly creating some issues. Now, we were covered by the letter of the fact that I was not going to allow them to come over less 2.5%, because the problem is you take a 12-year police officer that comes over as a fireman. Yes, they are credentialed. Yes, they are trained as a police officer. But when they come to us, they're just basically a recruit, and vice versa. If we went to be a police officer, we would not have any training to be a police officer. So obviously we would be starting, but by the letter of the rule, they would be making as much as my 10, 11-year employees in that position with sweat equity and the certain levels of training that we require folks. So you can see where that might cause an issue. So I fully agree with what Chris is doing with this, because it cuts down on those issues. And if I would have accepted those police officers, it would have created a morale problem in my department, which my morale was doing really well. And I did not want to take that opportunity to dampen the morale of my staff.
There's nothing in the ordinance. Most of what the chief's talking about has to do with the resolution that you're also going to consider tonight.
Okay.
Because the resolution deals with the rate of pay on transfers and demotions. This ordinance that's before you now only has to do with promotions. And like Chris said, the finance committee approved this unanimously. I don't think there's anybody really opposed to this ordinance. So that's where I think we stay on this. The resolution that's coming up later talks about all those things the chief was talking about the rates of pay and how they need to be considered in such a way to not create an inequitable situation with the pay plan or with the other employees in the department. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay. If no other questions or comments, then I'm prepared to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and vote on and approve this ordinance.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I don't think Scott's on here anymore. I don't see him anyway. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Jonathan's in favor.
So moved. Oh, I got to do a Jonathan in favor, Andy Bolts in favor. So moved.
Scott's back on now. You can ask Scott too.
Yeah, he went through a dead zone.
All right, Scott, you there? We are voting on that resolution.
Ordinance.
An ordinance.
I'm sorry, ordinance. Comprehensive classification and compensation plan. Jonathan and I have already voted yes.
You muted,
You there?
Scott.
Scott, you
He may
muted.
still be in a dead zone, Andy.
Yeah,
No, he's there. I see him.
he's there, but he's muted.
He got thumbs up.
Thumbs up. He voted aye. Okay.
So moved. Next one would be a resolution appointing the city's representative to the Sumner County Board of Equalization. That would be Oliver Berry with Troy Smith as alternate. Any discussion, Jonathan?
Thank you, Mayor Clary, I guess, or whoever put Oliver up there. He's a great person to be on the committee. He's done it before. I'm all for it.
Yeah, they're both very good candidates, so I think that's terrific. So make a motion.
Yes, so moved.
I'll second.
And all in favor? Scott?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Andy? Aye. So moved. Number 5, a resolution amending the personnel rules regarding the rate of pay for promotions, demotions, and transfers. Chris?
Yeah, short of, I don't want to read it to you, obviously, but essentially that's what John was saying. This is just this is the language out of our rules and regs that are actually going to be amended based on this new policy. Again, my only concern is section 2 near the bottom. Not a concern, just one point of clarification with the language. John, that's not, I mean, that's basically saying anything in our rules or in this new rule that's inconsistent with this basically is hereby repealed. The new policy that we have, I'm assuming it's kind of a two-part question. Is that policy going to go to Dave to turn into an administrative policy? Because obviously that 3 or 4 or 5 page policy, whatever it is, lays out much more detailed information than this resolution. Is that what that's going to turn into, as an administrative policy?
Some of it may, and a lot of it won't be necessary after the ordinance and resolution are amended in this way. A lot of the stuff that's in there is already in the rules. I'll be happy to go through the rules sometime and show you those things, how they're already there. But whatever needs to be changed that's not in either the ordinance or the resolution would be done by an administrative policy. I know you had a lot of things in your memo that are not here, but they had to do with administrative things that really wouldn't belong in a resolution. And you had examples of how things would be done and all this. Those things would be great in an administrative policy, but they wouldn't belong in either an ordinance or resolution. So what this is doing, that paragraph that you talked about, there are so many things in the personnel rules dealing with promotions, demotions, transfers, and all those things. The section I amended has to do with the rate of pay, which is what we talked about at the General Committee in February when we had the discussion. Didn't really talk about it in March because we didn't have the resolution ordinance prepared yet then. But it takes care of that inequity that we've had with transfers. We could have done it the way it was, but this makes it clearer that there's actually to be a consideration of the equity and how other employees are being treated within the other department. And that section about repealing anything else, if there's something else in the personnel rules that says something different from this, we've repealed it. And we'll go through, Kay and I will go through the rules and we'll find those sections. And if there are such sections, we'll take them out because this is repealing them.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire section on promotions that's not going to be anywhere near the new promotion policy. Well, I'll say anywhere near. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of conflicting.
Well, that'll be replaced probably by the ordinance that was just approved on first reading, well, recommended a minute ago by the committee. That'll take some of that section out. But we'll have to go through and make sure we got the right ordinances and resolutions. But what this does is the primary goal is to have some equity with transfers where there's not the belief that it's automatically 2.5%. It never had to be that way before. As we all know, it had to be approved by the department heads and the mayor. But it had been approved in some situations. Sometimes it wasn't. Chief Bush wouldn't approve that when the ones wanted to come from police over to fire. This way, it's very clear that this is to be taken into consideration by the department heads and the city administrator.
Yeah, so,
Any further discussion? Chris, anything else?
I was just gonna say, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know we're short on time, but I certainly agree with the demotions and transfers have historically been the biggest issue we've ran into. Promotions aren't that big of a deal. Everybody's been fairly consistent with that, but demotions, we joke and say, are we gonna, if Robert Manning gets tired of being your finance director and wants to take a voluntary demotion and go answer phones at the front of City Hall, are we really going to pay him 2.5% less? So that's obviously a little bit of an extreme example. My point is we've got to have some more flexibility with demotions and transfers. And this language in the new proposed policy definitely allows us to do that. Allows for some consistency and also just allowing the department head and the new city administrator to basically be involved in some of those decisions to make sure it's fair and equitable. So I certainly agree with this and the language as proposed, and would certainly appreciate your support.
As for Robert's motion, we'll just see how the budget goes. We'll wait on that. But so, any further discussion? I have a motion.
Yes, I did. Just one point. This
Yeah.
is something that will need to be added to tonight's agenda. So if I'm not at the meeting tonight, if y'all would please make sure this is added.
No, Scott, we're not gonna add it tonight. We're gonna consider it in
Okay.
2 weeks when the ordinance is on second reading.
All right.
It's gonna go with the ordinance. The ordinance has 2 readings.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. Have a motion.
So moved.
Jonathan, where'd you go? Well, there you go. Motion on the floor. Jonathan, you're muted.
Okay, here we go. Well, I wasn't, but I'll second it.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Scott?
Yes, aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Andy? Aye. So moved. Moving on to, let's see, the last one here. Resolution 2020-25, a resolution amending personnel rules and regulation rule 15. Back to you, Chris.
Well, I don't want to steal the spotlight on this one, and this is something that Dave and I have talked about for the last few months. And Dave, you're welcome to chime in as well. But this is just something that we feel like we need to do. I don't want to just give my opinion. I mean, I'm just kind of maybe the spokesperson of this. But Dave, if you want to chime in on the Veterans Day holiday, I think it's certainly something that we should support.
Yeah, that's what's one of the things that we talked about as a staff with my department heads and my top level people that we think Veterans Day needs to be a holiday. It used to be we swapped Veterans Day for the day after Thanksgiving. I think we need to consider giving the employees the day after Thanksgiving off. But I also think we need to add Veterans Day to the list of holidays for our employees. So that's kind of my proposal, along with my top level staff.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
I say, any questions on holidays? This is pretty cut and dry. I can tell you this is consistent with what everybody else is doing as well.
Right. Any discussion?
I make a motion. Recommend.
Jonathan?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Scott?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Andy? Aye. So moved. I think that concludes our meeting. So moved. Conclude.
There's a
Second.
motion to, I move to close, to adjourn.
All right. Second, Jonathan.
I'll second it.
All right. Go ahead. Aye.
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Andy? Aye. So moved. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right.
See you in a few minutes.
All righty.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks for your support.